Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to Point of Attack. I hope everybody is enjoying your Memorial Day weekend, even though some of us are still on quarantine or whatever it may be. Hopefully you're able to get out and at least have some type of fun. It being Memorial Day, me being military, I think everybody should remember, what this holiday is about. And, just remember all those people that, gave the ultimate price to protect the freedoms that, we enjoy now. So with that being said, just keep that in mind and enjoy your guys' Memorial Day weekend. I'm Dave Novak. We're going to do a quick video for Point of Attack. And today's video is going to be pretty quick. And I just want to talk about some trade rumors that have been going around and possible players that could be signed some places. Anybody that's been following football, obviously there's no games on or nothing, so it's just a lot of reading and stuff like that. But apparently Russell Wilson with the Seattle Seahawks has asked their front office to please go out and sign Antonio Brown. And I mean, that could be an absolutely monster pickup if they are able to do that, because aside from Antonio Brown and his mental aspect the past 2 years, and people talk about he went crazy and he's got CTE, I think maybe he was just drinking his own Kool-Aid a little too much and was starting to feel himself. And granted, yes, he was the best wide receiver in the league when he started getting traded and asking for trades, and had all kinds of off the field issues. I mean, that cannot be denied. You look at this guy's stats and they're just in a league of their own. You look at his first 7 years, and he was on pace to become the greatest wide receiver of all time. The guy was averaging 100+ receptions a season and, well over 1,200 yards. And he had certain seasons where he was, over 1,500. He was just an absolute freak. And I think the problem is he started feeling like, he was a little better than he was and wanted more money and, those type of things. He got in his own head, and the people around him were probably hyping him up like, you deserve more, you're God, blah blah blah. And you can't forget that Antonio Brown, for as good as he was, he still needed another guy opposite of him to help draw some coverage off of him, which was Juju Smith-Schuster. And I mean, you always excel more when you have another person there to take pressure off of you. And it's not like he needed somebody there necessarily to take pressure off of him, just to help with coverage so that they couldn't necessarily double team him every single time. So, and if Seattle actually listens and they do go out and try to bring him in and invite him out to camp, and they give Russell Wilson another weapon to go with DK Metcalf, who is a freak of nature, 6'5", 240, kid runs a 4.2 40-inch vert. He's just a absolute physical freak. And his biggest knock coming out of college was they said he couldn't run good routes. Well, he proved all them wrong last year. As a rookie, the guy has almost 1,000 yards. He was literally like 960 something and 70 receptions as a rookie. And he wasn't even the featured guy. In the first couple of games, they were barely even trying to throw him the ball. So I cannot wait to see what he's going to look like this year. And they also have Tyler Lockett. So if you were to bring in Antonio Brown, I mean, you have 3 legit wide receivers. And I think that's all Russell Wilson would need, because you look at what he's done in the past with not even as much talent as he would have now. So it would just be absolutely ridiculous if they listened and brought Antonio Brown in. And there was also a rumor talked about where if it wasn't Antonio Brown, maybe Des Bryant. And Des is another one that, physically a freak. He's way bigger than Antonio Brown. He doesn't run quite as precise routes, but he's still a very good wide receiver, a top-tier wide receiver when his head is in it. And not only that, I think if you get in Antonio Brown or Dez, the biggest thing you're going to get is a guy that's got a lot to prove with kind of like a chip on his shoulder, because everybody, has kind of thrown him to the wayside now and been like their career is over. So I think you get a guy with a chip on his shoulder looking to prove that, hey, I should have never been taken out of the talks of a top wide receiver, because that's exactly what I am, and I'm an absolute beast. So I think you get that added energy for them to go out there, because they want to prove that they are as legit as it gets. And then the other big trade rumor, which directly affects me and the Cowboys, is the Cowboys in talks with the New York Jets to pick up Jamal Adams, their strong safety. And Jamal Adams is, oh my God, this kid is arguably the best strong safety in the league, if not the best. I think he's the best. I'm sure an argument can be made for, maybe somebody else, but to me, I mean, he's 24 years old. He's going into his 4th season, so he is in his prime. He's super young. And he's 6'1", 220. He ran a 4.4 flat 40, so he's pretty much a 4.3 guy. So he's got the type of speed like a corner does, and with wide receivers. He's big, he's strong, he's rangy, he can jump, he's got a 35-inch vertical. He was their 6th pick in the 2017 draft. So, that shows how good he was coming out of LSU. He was a top 10 pick as a strong safety. He is absolutely outstanding. And for the Cowboys to want to try and get him is huge for their defense, because that secondary has always been their Achilles heel for, since Darren Woodson retired. They've really struggled to bring in solid corners and safeties. So if they could get this guy, because they went out in free agency and picked up Clinton Dix from the Packers, who is a very good free safety. If you could get him in there, Jamal Adams, to play strong safety, and then you also have Trayvon Diggs at corner and Awuzie as the other corner, I mean, the Cowboys are in business at that point, because their interior 7 is lights out. You look at their linebacking core with Jalen Smith and Van Der Esch and Joe Thomas, and then that defensive line with Aldon Smith and DeMarcus Lawrence at the ends, and Dontario Poe and Gerald McCoy. That defense immediately probably becomes a top 15 defense. And they already had the number 1 statistical offense in the league last year. So I think they would go from what I said. I think they win the NFC East this year. I think they go 11-5. And I said I thought that they were a playoff team, but probably not a Super Bowl contender yet, because they were still lacking on that defensive side. Jamal Adams, I believe, could be that missing piece, where now they are Super Bowl contenders, not just playoff contenders. And now the biggest hiccup is the Jets want a 1st rounder and a 3rd rounder for him. Now, to me, I have absolutely no problem giving you those picks, because I think too much value is put in to draft picks, because you do not know what you're getting with these kids coming out of college. Just because he was a freak in college does not mean he's going to be good in the NFL. I mean, just ask the Browns. How many quarterbacks did they take with the 1st pick of the draft, or the first in the first top 10, whatever it may be, their 1st round picks? I know for a fact they've had 15 plus 1st round picks not pan out, where the guys weren't even in the league 3 years later. The Cowboys have had the same issues with some 1st round picks. Just I believe it was like 8 years ago was when they moved up to number 6 to take Mo Claiborne. And he never panned out either. He never wound up being this top guy, and he was touted as the next Patrick Peterson, and that never formed. So more often than not, these draft picks, these high draft picks, you don't know what you're getting, and a lot of times they don't pan out. So I have no problem giving up a 1st and a 3rd for a guy that is a perennial Pro Bowler. 2 years in a row. The only year he didn't make it was his rookie year. The past 2 years he's been a Pro Bowler, and he's also been a 1st-team All-Pro. So, I mean, they're saying he is the best safety in the league, and you're talking about a guy that he's never had less than 85 tackles in any of his 3 seasons, which is outstanding. It's kind of a bad stat for the Jets, because obviously if he's making that many tackles, guys are getting to the 2nd level, which isn't good for the Jets. But he also does come down and fill the box a lot, because he is big and can play, like a slot linebacker tight position when he needs to. You know, he's got 12 fumbles to go with it. So when they do blitz him, he gets to the quarterback. 12 sacks, I'm sorry. He gets to the quarterback, and he's got 6 forced fumbles, 4 fumble recoveries, 2 interceptions, 2 defensive TDs. The guy is an absolute freak. I have no problem trading a first-round pick and a third-round pick for a guy that I know is going to produce, because he's already proven that he can produce at this level. And too much stock gets put into draft picks. So for me, if I'm Jerry Jones, Stephen Jones, these guys that are making these decisions on what the Cowboys need, I feel like this is the easiest decision they've ever made. You know, they missed out on getting Earl Thomas last year because same thing. They didn't want to give up draft picks. And they missed out on Landon Collins for the exact same reason. This is one that they cannot let slide by. And granted, it is just a trade rumor right now, but there is some validity to it because they are in talks with the Jets and they are trying to make something happen. And I'm sure that they're like, okay, we'll give you a first, but we'd rather give you like a fourth or something like that. And the funny thing to me is, okay, it is a first and a third round pick. But at the same time, if the Cowboys are really good this year, like I expect them to be, and they win 11 games and they go deep into the playoffs, you're talking about that first round pick is going to be in the back half, 25 to 32, which is essentially an early second round pick. And then the same thing with that third rounder, it's more like a fourth because they're picking in the back of the pack anyway. So to me, giving up those draft picks, if the Cowboys get him and they are as good as everybody thinks they're going to be, they're not going to be drafted in the top 15 anyway, So what's the difference? You might as well give up those picks, because when you're drafting at the back half of the first round anyway, you're just taking, best available player at that time. So to me, this is an absolute no-brainer. You go out and you get the best safety in the league and you give them draft picks, because the other thing is we do have the money. The Jets already signed him. His contract would not kill us. So we'd still be able to sign him, probably redo his deal for his contract, and still do whatever we had to do with Dak. And I'll tell you what, when it comes to Dak, the fact that he keeps turning down these monster contracts is just ridiculous. At this point, I feel like, you know what, make him play out the franchise tag and earn this contract. He's either going to prove that he's worth it or he's going to prove that he's not. But either way, I think we need to start and get that defense taken care of and worry about Dak later, because, he has yet to prove that he is anything more than an average quarterback. You're talking about a guy that went 8-8 last year. He's got 1 playoff win going into his 4th season. He has shown nothing to prove that he's worth over $40 million a year. Absolutely nothing. He had 1 win last year versus teams with a winning record. So, and granted, that is a team thing. Our team needed to get better, but at the same time, I watched Dak miss throws that would have won games. So, in a way, it can be put on him because he wasn't playing to the best of his ability, and wide receivers were getting open and he wasn't able to make the throw. So that is on him. So, as far as the trade rumors go, those are 2 really, really big ones that if those teams could pick up, they're filling major holes that could make them serious Super Bowl contenders. So Seattle picking up a wide receiver like Antonio Brown or Des Bryant could be absolutely huge for them. And the Cowboys picking up Jamal Adams at safety could be, I can't stress how big that is for them. I mean, that literally will fill a hole that has been haunting them for years. So it's going to be interesting to wait and see. And obviously they're just rumors, but I'm praying to God eventually I hear that ESPN sound go off on my phone and I look down and it says, the Dallas Cowboys have agreed to a trade with the Jets for Jamal Adams, because that would absolutely make my year. So that's all I got for trade rumors. So appreciate you guys watching. Leave comments, share, like, go to my YouTube page and subscribe. And I'll see you for the next video. I appreciate you guys watching, and enjoy your weekend.